Contributor and veteran political and media strategist Kurt Bardella, along with Republican strategist Boyd Matheson, the host of Inside Sources and former chief of staff for Senator Mike Lee. To you both, good morning. Where should we start? Let's begin, Kurt, with you in Pennsylvania. How important is this state and the focus right now from the Harris campaign on union workers?
Well, I mean, it kind of is the state for the Democrats. This is the state that if they don't carry, the path to the Electoral College becomes much more challenging. There are other paths, but this is kind of what everyone has said. This is kind of the state that they have to win. It's why Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, was such an attractive option to have on the ticket when all that conversation was happening, because of how vital the Keystone State is to the Democrats' electoral path strategy. Obviously, the focus on union workers is going to be one of the key campaign themes for the Harris campaign when it comes to the economy, in part because right now in America, unions are more popular today than at any point in American history. And there's a contrast there that the Harris campaign feels that they can create with Trump, basically saying, hey, we're for the workers, he's for the bosses. That's a message that can resonate.
Here is Kamala Harris talking about steel workers in America. Boyd, I'll get your thoughts on this on the other side.
U.S. Steel is an historic American company, and it is vital for our nation to maintain strong American steel companies. And I couldn't agree more with President Biden. U.S. Steel should remain American-owned and American-operated. And I will always have the back of America's steel workers.
How does Trump respond to that, Boyd?
I'm sure he'll respond with some more populist rhetoric and kind of the counter space there. The other forgotten American workers will sort of be the strategy there. And it's been an interesting ebb and flow between these campaigns. I was thinking just this morning, it was 44 days ago, Republicans felt like they had the momentum, even though it was still in all of those battleground states, it was still within the margin of errors. And then suddenly Kamala Harris comes on after Joe Biden drops out. She has all the momentum. And yet here we are just 63 days out, and we're right back where we started. Nothing's really changed. I do think Harris has a little bit more of the momentum piece, but the numbers are still basically the same. And so going after those workers, those Americans who feel like they've been left behind by whichever administration, I think that is where it's going to be, as Kurt rightly pointed out. Pennsylvania is sort of the ground zero for all of this.
I do find it interesting, Boyd, that Trump seems to be up in the polls when you ask Americans how they feel about his handling of the economy and their confidence in him handling it moving forward, yet he still is neck and neck and struggling in some other polls. Why is that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. There's two forms of disconnect going on, Marnie. You have a disconnect on the Trump side of the equation, where people do feel like they would be better off economically if he were in the White House. And yet they sort of feel this disconnect in terms of his style, his character, and the rhetoric that he puts out there. You have the opposite with Kamala Harris. She wants to tout some of the things that they've accomplished in the Biden administration. And yet a lot of the things that they have had as successes don't feel that way around the kitchen table for most Americans. So both campaigns are struggling with a congruency and an authenticity problem.
And the other issue that we have to talk about is, at the top of the show, we discussed the 6 hostages that were killed in Gaza. The protests continue in Israel. Kurt, as Americans get ready to vote in this election cycle, how important will the situation in the Middle East be if there's not a ceasefire between now and November?
I still don't think that for the majority of Americans, this is a motivating voting issue. Foreign policy does not rank in the top 5 with the American people when it comes to the issues that they so-called care about. It's obviously the economy, it's abortion, it's immigration, it's energy, it's climate change, it's gun reform. Foreign policy just isn't one of those that cracks the code in terms of how it's going to motivate people to vote. Now, if you're a Jewish American, if you're a Palestinian American, this cuts very differently, of course. But by and large, I think one of the things why there's this disconnect between what the polls say on some issues and what the reality is each campaign is kind of struggling with those specific challenges. There is an empathy gap here. Donald Trump might rank well on the economy, but he ranks underwater when it comes to does he relate to you? Do you think he cares about you? Kamala Harris may not do as well as on the economy, but on issues like abortion, she's crushing the Republicans. And there are a number of voters now who say, the abortion issue is more important to them than even the economy. So this is going to be a race determined by who can motivate and animate their side to come out for their issues more than anything else.
Right. And